A lot of people's vision board starts with, I want to move to Brazil. I want to move to Rio. Why do you want to move to Rio? Well, it's a beautiful place. It's like, okay, that's the only reason? Yeah, sure. Okay. You want to move there because it's a beautiful place. Do you want that temperature all year round? What are you looking for? Are you looking for a home? Are you looking for a condominium? How many bedrooms do you need? What are your space requirements?
It's us. I heard like in Europe, in Barcelona specifically, they had like water guns and they started squirting the tourists because they're like tired of tourists over there.
People in Barcelona are notoriously tired of something. They're constantly bickering about something in Barcelona.
I think in Barcelona, I've been to Barcelona twice. I was there last summer and they had a huge sign and it said, go away gringos, like something like that. Like they didn't want gringos to be there, even last year. So I could only imagine how long this has been going on.
They've been trying to separate from Spain.
Yeah, that's what I heard. They're trying to be their own country. I mean, they speak their own language over there too, Catalan and all that.
Yeah. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. I would still recommend people go out there and visit and enjoy themselves.
Oh, I love Spain, man. I love Spain. And I know you do have a property in Valencia, right?
I'm moving to Valencia. I don't have property out there yet.
Oh, I could. Yeah, I think, you know what? I saw videos about Valencia and I just assumed you had property in Valencia.
Yeah, and we're thinking about moving there. So I've been going out there to kind of gauge, where we're going to live and where we're going to settle in.
Why did you pick Valencia over other cities in Spain?
Well, Valencia is near the coast. And it's the third largest city. So it's a coastal city and it isn't as populated as Madrid and Barcelona. And kind of like, I kind of like those secondary cities. Like in the United States, I live in Fort Lauderdale. It's not Miami. It's close enough to get to get what I would like out of Miami out of it, but still a small enough town that I feel like I'm not overwhelmed with traffic or just what comes with a big city. I like Charlotte, North Carolina city. I like Tampa. I like those secondary cities more so than like large principal cities.
The capitals.
Yeah. So I've always lived coastal. So Valencia is coastal. It's not Barcelona, but close enough. And because of that, the people are a little bit nicer. Cost of living is a little bit lower. Just the things that I like.
Yeah, Barcelona is very expensive too. When I was out there, like the Airbnb was super expensive. Everything was expensive compared to the rest of Spain. iCast Enterprises says, glad to make a few minutes of the live stream. My wife and daughter and I are working on a plan to move north of Karl in the Cinque Terre region.
Cinque Terre region, yep.
More specifically, Vernazza to begin with. Is that in Italy?
Yep.
These are places I haven't heard of, man. I got to get more familiar with Italy. I only know a couple cities out in Italy. So Karl, what are the most common misconceptions that people have about buying property abroad?
I don't know if they have misconceptions. I would say probably the biggest misconception is that they think the lending facilities are like they are in the United States. So I would say the US is very, very real estate friendly when it comes to the creation of mortgages and or kind of unique products for real estate. From what I've seen in other countries, not so much so. Harder to get mortgages, horrible terms. Like right now in Colombia, you're looking at 20 to 30% down as a foreigner and interest rates of 14 to 22% on real estate, which is just doesn't make any sense. It's like credit card cash advance rates for real estate. But I would say the lending terms are what people are most surprised by when they start looking at real estate outside of the country. Also, the criteria for approval for real estate is also a little tighter than it is in the United States.
What are some key factors someone should consider when looking to purchase property in a foreign country?
I think the very first thing that you need to be clear on is why do you want to do that? And what do you want out of your property? So a lot of people's vision board starts with, I want to move to Brazil. I want to move to Rio. And it's like, well, why do you want to move to Rio? Well, it's a beautiful place. It's like, okay, that's the only reason? Yeah, sure. Okay. So you want to move there because it's a beautiful place. All right. So do you want that temperature all year round? The temperature varies, but what are you looking for? Are you looking for a home? Are you looking for a condominium? How many bedrooms do you need? What are your space requirements? How much do you want to spend? Have you considered what your residency situation is going to be like? How are you generating your income? Are you living off of your retirement income? Are you planning on finding work there? What do you do for work? So I think before moving to or buying real estate in another country, I think you really need to be clear on what it is that you want. I get a lot of people who reach out to me and say, I want to buy a house in Italy. And my first question to them is, what's your budget and what are your space requirements? Do you want a freestanding house with a yard and outdoor space? Or do you want a townhouse? Or do you want an apartment within a building? Right? All these things are going to influence the price and influence where you might be buying. How close do you want to live to the coast? How close do you want to live to a major airport? What sort of transportation needs do you have? So what about schooling? Do you need education for your children? Healthcare? There's so many things to consider. So I would go through that same list that I'm describing first with what are the parameters for the house itself? Then what are the parameters for the community? And ultimately, what's your budget when it comes to space and capital?
I love what you said there, man, because I'm conflicted between right now Brazil and Spain, because I love both of those countries a lot. Specifically in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and then in Spain it would probably be Barcelona, but Barcelona's a little pricey. So I consider all these factors. So I consider, all right, how's the weather like? How are my finances like? How's the cost of living over there? The quality of life. So I feel like when you're planning on moving overseas, like you said, you have to take these things into consideration. I don't know how much you know about the education system in Brazil, because that's actually something I'm very curious about. Do you know anything about the education system in Brazil? How is it like in Brazil?
They have a different school year schedule than we do, mainly because they have the inverted kind of the south of the equator. So they have an inverted schedule. So like right now, it is winter in Brazil, especially like southern Brazil. It's winter, and summer is like our Christmas season, like up here. So December, January, February is their summertime. So the school year is kind of flipped around that schedule. Then you have a few different tiers of school. The public school system is pretty poor. It's not so good. And then you have your first level of private schools. And then you have like your premier private schools where the wealthy Brazilians would send their kids. And then you have, of course, your international schools, which are probably like just a little tier above that, where the international business folks and the diplomats are going to have their children going to school. But that's the range there. So I would say the private schools aren't that costly, maybe a few $100s a month. And then they get expensive, like up to $30,000-$40,000 a year if you want to spend that much.
Yeah, I was just curious about that because I think when people move abroad, I feel like they fail to consider that eventually you're going to want a family down over there. So the thing is, how's the education system? So that's the thing that I thought about, because I know in Spain, from what I hear, is a very good education system, unless I'm wrong. But that's what I hear. But Brazil, I'm not too sure about that. So I had to ask that question because I was very curious about that.
Yeah, to put it plainly, infrastructurally speaking, Spain is far ahead of Brazil in a lot of ways. So when it comes to the public transportation system, the education system, the healthcare system, a much larger middle class, all those things are going to be better in Spain on average than Brazil. In Brazil, where you are economically is going to really shape what your experience is going to be, right? So the middle class, unfortunately, doesn't have the same benefits and privileges as the middle class in the United States or in like Western Europe. So you really, if you're going to go to Brazil and you're able to port your income, you can live a really wonderful life, right? You can isolate, you can put yourself in a bubble and live a fantastic life. But if you're looking at kind of comparing the middle to the middle, it doesn't quite compare.